and today we're going to discuss the discography of Marilyn Manson. I thought about doing something like this just because I was I'm just trying to test, the waters when it comes to making videos, as well as just dip my toes in some things. And I haven't made many videos in a while, but I thought about doing this. Um, and yeah, it's just the reason why I want to do Marilyn Manson specifically because he's actually probably the first metal artist I've ever listened to. Like when I started getting into metal, he was basically the first artist I listened to besides like maybe Slipknot or Korn. But even then, I listened to Marilyn Manson a lot, like a long time prior to those bands. I started listening to him like sixth or seventh grade, while Slipknot was more like eighth or ninth grade, and then I just got heavier and heavier progressing through the years. But yeah, Marilyn Manson, we're going to discuss his discography and rate it. Now, before I delve into this, I know the man has a controversial history, but we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss his music entirely and only his music. And one other thing is, I haven't listened to all these albums. Like, I haven't listened to his mid 2000 albums, like these three, because I heard they're not great anyway, and I never grew up on them just because they're not really, let's just say, they aren't really coherent with the rest of his discography, just because, like I said, I barely listen to any of this, and I haven't heard really good reviews for them anyway. But other than that, let's start with his first album. This one came out in like 1994, Portrait of an American Family. I'm gonna put it at B. It's a very raw album. It's a very raw album. The discography gets progressively better when the production gets better, but on this album it's not very good. But besides that, the songs are very good and catchy. Trying to think of some songs I can think of. This is the one I barely listened to, but the songs I can probably think of is Lunchbox, I think is the name of that one song is really good. Lunchbox and My Monkey, those are two songs that kind of ring a bell when I think of this particular album. It's a very solid debut, definitely, just because this is kind of the start of industrial metal, I guess you could say. And a lot of his music is very influential today as well, especially with this album because a lot of rappers, especially in like trap metal, have taken influence by him. He's kind of the original like trap metal, you know, artist. Well, he doesn't really do trap metal, obviously, since it sounds completely different than the 90s, but he definitely has influenced a lot of people like Ghostman and things in that vein. But yeah, I just wanted to like touch on that just because this man is very influential despite his, like I said, controversial past as well as present, his just overall presence, but in the industry. But I guess let's move on to Smells Like Children. And now this will be a B simply because there's only one really good song in this album. There are some other ones, but let's just say they're very immature, as well as some of the song titles are very, very immature, especially rock and roll, naughty word. I can't say it on YouTube, otherwise, I'll be like Papa John's and get banned forever. That dude, because he said the word and there's a song name after it. I'm kind of heavily implying what the song title's name is, but other than that, there are not really a lot of standout tracks besides the cover. Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, and like after listening to that song especially, as well as other covers like Cry Little Sister and God's Gonna Cut You Down, I wish he can finally release like a cover album because he makes he makes great covers, especially like Tainted Love. Tainted Love is a bop. It goes hard. And I just wish he'd actually release just a cover album because he does covers very well. And not to downplay his other songs, he makes very good original songs, but he can make great covers with his whole weird persona. And I wish he'd do that more. And this album kind of solidifies that. This album is might be S tier. Say what you want about Marilyn Manson. A lot of people don't really like him, but this song, I mean, this album has the beautiful people, as well as trying to think, irresponsible hate anthem. I'm kind of looking at my Spotify app once in a while just to not sound cheesy, as well as other songs like Tourniquet and Antichrist Superstar, which is, the title track. That was really good too. This album is really good. It's much heavier than the other albums because he kind of embraces more like, I guess, guitar, like heavy guitar, distorted guitar, as well as just, other heavier things. There's not like blast beats on this album and just straight up death metal, but it's still really good. Um, the closest artist that's as popular as him is Slipknot, and they actually incorporate blast beats in. They're like one of the few big death metal bands. People don't really call them death metal, but they kind of combine new metal and death metal. Sorry to digress, but that's another artist that I've already covered, and that it's just Marilyn Manson has his own distinct sound from the rest of the crowd. Slipknot kind of has a similar sound to a lot of 2000s metalcore, but the reason I like Marilyn Manson so much and I've always liked his music is just because it sounds so unique for the time. Now, the next album. This album is also going to S tier because it has such great hits on this album. Not only do you have the fight song, you have Disposable Teens, you have the love song as well, prior to the fight song, as well as just um, other funny titles like Lamb of God and President Dead, as well as just target audience. This album is kind of a middle finger to Hollywood as well as just the industry, just because of how toxic it can be. And I really appreciate it. And I forgot to bring this album. I think this album came out prior to this album. I should have known that. I'm gonna put that in A tier. It's a good album. It has songs like User Friendly and The Dope Show, and that album's also called Hollywood, by the way. So it's even more of a middle finger to Hollywood, which I forgot to address. But this album is really cool too. um, Mechanical Animals. That song is good too, since that's the title track. And the album cover, I remember not hearing about it because I wasn't alive, but I remember reading articles about how that album cover is very controversial. Just because he's a literal woman, you could say, but he's just very ahead of it. He was very ahead of his time since he addressed many things like sexuality and like more progressive views on the world, which is pretty cool. World views as well as just opinions and things in that vein. And that like I said, he's a very unique individual, and he's definitely ahead of his time since he's influenced so many people. Even like Lil Uzi and I think Trippie Redd are very influenced by him, which is pretty neat. This album is probably going in S tier. These are probably going to be the final three albums that go in S rank, but maybe I do have some nostalgia for these two, so maybe they'll go up. But this album is really good. The Golden Age of Grotesque. This album just kind of pisses off the boomers even more, since he keeps on releasing more albums that have controversial titles. I guess you could say not really, but when it comes to more a different crowd, then yes. But Marilyn Manson has always had his own demographic, and people love the songs, especially songs like I think is Tainted Love in this album. I might be wrong. I think it is, and Tainted Love is really good, as well as Mob Scene and This Is the New Shit. Those are great songs. I don't remember if the cover of Tainted Love is on this or it's its own like single. I think it might be. I might be mistaken, but that song's good too, even if it isn't. It should have his own. It should have its own tier at this point. Tainted Love, just because that's one of his biggest hits. And I'd argue Marilyn Manson does the best Tainted Love in history compared to other artists. But yeah, it's a great album. I think they had some songs on like some big movies with like what was that one Chris Evans movie that they had a Marilyn Manson song, and I forgot what it was called. But I didn't grow up in the 2000s, so I have no idea. But or early 2000s for that matter. But yeah, these albums are kind of late 2000s. I'm not going to cover them just because I don't really care for them. The next album, I think The Pale Emperor, I will put this in A tier since it's kind of a comeback, and this one of the songs even featured in the John Wick movie, the first one. I forgot what it's called. Let me look through my Spotify. Yeah, Killing Strangers. That's a great song. Um, what? Oh my! You gotta be kidding me. Yeah, my mic kind of ran out of juice. I'm so sorry. What was I saying? Oh, we're talking about the Pale Emperor. Gee, I swear, my headset only has like 30 minutes of battery on average. But this album's pretty good, like I said. I think the main songs that are good is Killing Strangers, and I just love how that's in a John Wick movie. I mean, that is the most Marilyn Manson thing ever. Next album is I forgot what it's called. But it's an A tier. I didn't really grow up on it too much, but I did like it. I forgot what it's called though. It has the Kill for Me on it. Oh yeah, Heaven Upside Down. I'm sorry. I just like hummed for like 5 seconds, and then I finally found the song on my phone. Yeah, Heaven Upside Down. And I don't think looking up the album on my phone is cheating. It's sometimes, it's like 4 in the morning, and I have insomnia, so I can't really think of the song or the album name for that matter. So I think my favorite song is either Tattooed in Reverse or We Know Where You Fucking Live in all caps. That's pretty cool. But yeah, the whole album is pretty decent. It's kind of a return to form. His last three albums have actually been really good, and this album especially, I might give it the S rank. Some people really don't like this album. You know what? I'll give it a high A here. Yeah, I'll give it a high A. It's like an A plus. It's not an S, but it's an A plus. It's a very good standout album for Marilyn Manson. His most recent album that was released during COVID. And it was actually released on 9/11, believe it or not, like 19 years after, oddly enough. But it's still a really good album. The title track especially is really good. It has like a bluesy vibe to it. His new album doesn't even really sound heavy or even metal for that matter. It has some Marilyn Manson like you know has some Marilyn Manson like features and like a lot of his what he incorporates in his music typically a lot of elements. I mean, sorry for that long pause. I was kind of tongue tied for a second, but yeah, Weird Chaos has a lot of bluesy vibes to it, but it still has a lot of like metal elements as well as just industrial elements. Not as much as the last couple albums, but still really good. And I like this album more than the last two, like Pale Emperor, and that album especially. Songs like "Don't Chase the Dead," "Paint You with My Love." This album sounds like it could fit a Tim Burton soundtrack, which is really weird because Marilyn Manson is kind of the Tim Burton of music, but a lot darker. Since I do have a deep passion for his movies, Tim Burton, I think Marilyn Manson would make a great soundtrack for Tim Burton. I think he even has a song on The Nightmare Before Christmas, but so does Korn for that matter. But yeah, it's just he could really make a really creepy soundtrack if he allowed him. I don't think they ever will, just because Marilyn Manson, like I said, is more extreme than Tim Burton by a long shot. But I still think Marilyn Manson's music is great, especially his covers. They're very good. And all in all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to make it quick just because my battery might run out in any second. This album is really good. Or not, or all these albums are really good. Especially this album is really good. And I hope you listen to all these because this is kind of my childhood. I listened to since like a lot of these albums in sixth grade, seventh grade, and it really did start the train of metal for me. This was definitely my gateway drug into that, you could say. And yeah, just all in all, I hope you loved this video and I hope you like his music and I hope you're open. And if you don't like his music, I hope you're open to exploring new albums, especially these. These three are really good. I highly recommend these three, especially. And songs like the Fight Song and Beautiful People and Tan Love and Disposable Teens. Those songs especially are standout. But Yeah, hope you enjoy this and peace out.